Hey guys, welcome to Project Metal Music's YouTube channel with your host Young, and we are here with Mattie from Jaelyn. So welcome, Mattie.
Thank you very much.
So Mattie, could you introduce yourself and what you do within the band?
Sure, my name is Mattie Boyd, and I play bass guitar and I do a little backup vocals in Jaelyn.
Cool, cool. So let's dive into some questions. As a kid, what were you listening to?
As a kid, I was all about punk. I was really into skate punk. I kind of made my way into hardcore punk as a teenager in high school. I eventually made inroads into metal music via like Suicidal Tendencies and crossover thrash. And then I also had developed in high school kind of an appreciation for like post-punk and goth music. I'm a really big fan of The Cure, um, and that sort of thing. It's kind of all for me revolved around punk and post-punk and hardcore.
Cool, cool. Yeah. So who actually got you into listening to music? Was it your parents, a sibling, or was it a journey of self-discovery?
For me, I think it was so I used to work at the Jersey Shore as a kid in middle school and high school, and I was around some older kids who were like really cool surfers who I really looked up to. And at that time, the surf scene and the punk rock scene were really connected. And in looking up to these people who were much better surfers than I were, and who had bands of their own, and who were making really cool music, I kind of gravitated towards everything they were doing. And I remember at like my first summer job, uh, somebody put yeah, they had what were those things called? I think they were called micro discs. It was like before
Yeah.
MP3 players. He had a micro disc of just like it was just like pop punk stuff, like maybe some early Blink 182, and like not terribly deep cuts and not terribly heavy stuff, but just it was the first time that I'd heard music that wasn't just what was playing on the top 40 radio stations. And I was really just within that whole scene, that whole environment, I was enthralled. And I kind of, that was my entryway into, I went to Warped Tour also around that time, and discovered some, maybe, I discovered Bad Religion, I think, when I was at Warped Tour for the first time. Bad Religion, of course, was already a huge band at that point. But yeah, and then some smaller like local acts, and it kind of went from there.
Cool, cool, cool. Excuse me. Out of all the bands that you've listened to since you were a kid, um, who out of those bands, who actually inspired you to sort of like pick up the guitar or the bass and say, I want to do this"?
Yeah, I think I was for guitar, I was really inspired by like I want to say early AFI, and also the thing for me was performing, and I knew early on, or at least I thought early on, that I didn't really have the voice or the like the stage presence to be a front person or to be a singer. And so the natural, and I as a child, you don't really, I didn't have the tools to appreciate what the bassist was doing. So you saw the guitar player and you say, okay, I could see myself in that guitar player. And so it was just wanting to be on stage and wanting to perform. And it just seemed like the logical choice. And I mentioned like early AFI around the time when they changed guitar players, when Jade Puget joined for like, what was that album? Uh, Black Sails in the Sunset, um, that I had only ever really heard very simple guitar, like simple punk music. And I was seeing in hardcore punk and in his guitar playing specifically, I was seeing and hearing a layer of complexity that I didn't really realize was possible in punk before. And so that I already knew I wanted to play the guitar, but that was like, okay, there's actually something here. They're not just, it's not all the Ramones. It's like they're doing complex things here that really take a minute to like understand and appreciate and wrap your head around. It was also like AFI was one of those bands in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s that was doing AFI and The Cure were both kind of pushing the boundaries aesthetically in like gendered ways. And that was big for me to see somebody in goth music or in punk music who was not a big macho guy, but who was wearing makeup or pushing sort of gender boundaries was also similarly like I didn't know that that was possible, but when I saw it, I was like, okay, there's something there too. That's also something that I see myself doing, and between those two things, it kind of it kind of sprouted. And then of course, like digging deeper, New York Dolls, same thing, really cool. Like Johnny Thunder's guitar playing was like mind blowing. And it's the same thing. They were also at the same time pushing these gender boundaries.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, were you in any bands prior to joining Jaelyn?
I had played in a couple of bands that didn't really gain much momentum, even like a couple that we never even got around to naming. But I primarily was like a solo performer. I was playing punk music, but stripping it down and doing it on acoustic guitar. And there was a couple of about a year and a half or 2 years where I was going in my 20s, where I was traveling around around the US, just like busking, playing music on the street corner, and just making enough money to get into the next town and just kind of going from there. I was like a hitchhiker traveler kid for a couple of years, and that's where I developed my own sort of guitar like intro, or my own like style, I guess, in music.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, cool, cool. Um, was there any sort of like, did you sort of like write any songs for yourself, or were you sort of like, were you just primarily sort of like doing covers?
I was
Yeah,
doing
when you
both. I
do,
was
yeah,
doing both, and it was this kind of like I wouldn't call the music that I was playing necessarily folk, but there was this around the time, this was in the 2010, the early 2010s, and there was this kind of underground resurgence of like folk punk. It didn't always sound like folk music sounds. It sounded like punk music, but it was folk in the sense that the barrier between the performers and the audience was very fluid. And so the songs in that sense were kind of, they were shared. People were playing similar songs and putting their own spins on them. And it was often not clear where a song originated because one person would do something with it, another person would add something onto it. And so you would have people in the audience singing along, or people who had just met getting together and playing whatever instruments they had with them. And so yeah, it was a really interesting time. It was uh, being in that scene. I didn't really write my own, or very often at least, write my own songs myself from start to finish and play those. It was kind of this more collaborative, collective thing, and I think that's kind of what led me to pick up the bass later on, because the way I approach writing with bass is that I like to take a song or a fragment of a song or even just a guitar part that someone else has written and just see, okay, how can I steer this, or how can I add a layer to it? And it's kind of a similar process for me, where there's sort of a collaboration, and something bounces from one person to the next, and each time it does, it picks up something additional.
cool, cool. So let's get into what you've been doing with Jaelyn. So what has Jaelyn been up to?
So we finished writing so we released one album, our first album, back in 2022. Yeah. And that one was just Jaelyn. Jaelyn's the name of our singer. And it was at that point, it was just her. She wrote it, she did all the vocals, did some of the guitars, and just had studio musicians do the rest of it. I joined up in 2023, and we did a little bit of touring and gigging, and we started writing what would be our second album, which is due out this fall. Um, And so a lot of this year and last year was spent writing these songs and passing them back and forth, we record the guitars and the vocals at Jaelyn's home studio. So a lot of time in the studio kind of perfecting that stuff, and playing shows around Philadelphia. We've done a little bit of touring around the East Coast of the United States as well, and just making connections and developing our thing.
Cool. So could you, wait, before I ask that, is there any new singles coming out from the new album, or do you?
Yeah, so we've got a couple singles out already. We've got 2 singles out already. One just went out last week called Murdered by Monsters. And then before that, we had a single. Which one was that? Back in July. And then our next single, I'm not sure if we've decided which song I don't know if we've decided if I'm allowed to say which one it is, but we've got another one coming out in October. And then our official album release date is in October as well. I believe it's the 6th, October 6th. And so we've been working on music videos for that. We're putting together a record release show. And we've actually started at the very early stages of writing now what will be the 3rd album, even before this second one has been fully released. So that's also really exciting.
Yeah, cool. So you mentioned that you were sort of like working on a couple of videos. Is that for the singles that you've been releasing, or?
It is, yeah.
Cool.
Like we've made a couple of music videos. Most recently, the most recent music video was for the single Murdered by Monsters, and we do those DIY, or we have so far, which has been really cool. I don't have any experience whatsoever in making videos or doing video. But to kind of work our way through that and learn as we go has been super cool.
Cool. Would those be released on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, or do you know?
They are on YouTube for sure. I'm sure they must be on Facebook. I do think you can certainly get them on our label's website, which is Soda Records. But yeah, they're on YouTube. I'm not sure if they're on Instagram in full. And they're also on our YouTube page, Jaelyn the Band.
Yeah, cool. So, could you tell us a little bit about the album, which is coming out in October?
Absolutely. So the concept behind this band is that it tells this very very intricate and long sort of space opera type story that was conceived of in full by Jaelyn, and each album kind of tells this like one chapter of the story. And the story revolves around the 7 sisters who are they're the villains of the story. They're enslaving entire races of people somewhere off in the depths of space in the future. And each album sort of tells the story of the showdown between the hero character and one of these 7 sister villains. So the first album revolved around Rame was the name of the antagonist in that album. And so you'll hear lyrics about Rame in some of the songs on the first album, We Begin, and I think Rame is mentioned in one of our like shirts. That there's a line in a song that says it's time to kill Rame, and that makes its way into some of the merch as well. So this album that's coming out in October tells the story of the second sister, Freyid. The album is called The Star of Freyid, and musically, this album, whereas the first one was kind of more prog and maybe even a little sometimes post-punk, this one we've taken it in a more sort of more metallic, more metal direction, a little bit more post-hardcore influences as well. It's heavier for sure. and definitely more guitar, like more proggy sort of guitar solos, and that sort of thing. It's a really cool direction. I fell in love with the band after the first album when I met Jaelyn and she invited me to be a member. But the stuff that we've written and that we've been playing for this second album has really I think it blows our first album out of the water. And I don't just say that because I wasn't involved in the first album and I am in the second. I think it's a really exciting, a really powerful like piece of work.
Cool. Is there sort of any merchandise linked to the new album, like like t-shirts and stuff?
We've got some shirts. So we do the merch. Pretty much all of the merch we do ourselves as well. We happen to be a pretty DIY focused band. So we've got a couple of shirts. One of them was designed by Jaelyn. Another one I designed. And then random stuff. We've got stickers and like beer koozies and I don't know, of it, like tapes and CDs. Where this album is coming out, it's going to be on vinyl and CD. Yeah, it's just another opportunity to be creative. Oh, you know what? Another thing is and this isn't out yet, but Jaelyn and Steven, our guitar player, are working on a comic book series that really like lays out the entire story in full, and it's like a graphic novel type thing. So there's pictures, and it's another way of like understanding this whole space opera thing that's going on throughout these albums. So those are going to come out. It's hopefully this year, but certainly by early next year.
Cool. Would all the merchandise would be on, say, Bandcamp or the website, or?
Absolutely on Bandcamp, yeah. And I think, at the moment, probably Bandcamp is the best place to go for that. The Bandcamp is jaelyn.bandcamp.com.
Cool. Now, he did mention, is the new album going to be on vinyl?
It will,
Is it going to be on? Yeah, cool. Because I know there's a couple of people in the chat who are my couple of subscribers, love vinyl, and they keep saying, "L, make sure you ask, are they going to put it on vinyl?" I says, "Yeah, I will." Yeah, so it's definitely going to be on vinyl.
It will. We received the test pressings a week or two ago, and people who pre-ordered the album on vinyl, it's going to start shipping out sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So potentially even before the official album release date for pre-orders of vinyl.
Cool. And that could be found if you, is the pre-order still open?
It is. Yeah, pre-orders are still open. We are taking pre-orders through our other label, Fameless Records, spelled with a PH, PHAMELESS. They're a local Philly record label, and we know those guys, and we've played with some of the bands on that label, and they've been really cool about helping us take this album and make it a reality, put it on vinyl, put it on CD. So their website is going to be the best place to pre-order the vinyl or the CD.
Cool, sweet. Yeah, I see. My moderator Lisa Boo. She says that yes, love vinyl. So love vinyl. You mentioned earlier that you are sort of like in pre-production of his third album, like tentatively starting to write the third album.
Yeah.
Is that third album going to be sort of like a continuation on from the first and second albums?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, cool.
It's a little early to say in what way the like the musical style is gonna shift. We've got like one demo without any lyrics, and I've got another like a guitar riff that, or more than a riff, less than a song that we're that's also in the hopper, and we're gonna kind of keep passing those around and add to them and that sort of thing. Sort of a couple of people over as we've played shows, maybe 2 or 3 people have said that our sound reminds them of the band Coheed and Cambria. And I haven't listened to a ton of their stuff, but from what I have, I can definitely see the similarity. But I think from what I know about the third album that we've only just started writing, I think it's gonna be moving even a little bit more into that sort of proggy sort of it's like post-hardcore. I'm not even sure what to call it, but kind of in that direction. A little bit. Yeah, I'm not even sure. I don't want to say too much about it because it's so early. More complicated guitar parts is one thing that I'm noticing.
Cool. Yeah. So, is there going to be? So, I know you mentioned that it's going to be. Is there going to be a launch party for the album, for the second album?
There will. Yeah, there is. That will be in Philadelphia on October 6th. Is that right? No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah. Cool. So, is there going to be sort of like a tour after the launch party, or do you not know?
We would really like for that to happen. Yeah, I don't think we've booked anything yet, but we're talking about it. Talking about going on the road with some of the people, maybe one other band from Philadelphia, one of our label mates, because it's always fun to be able to do that. Yeah, nothing concrete yet, but absolutely in the works.
Yeah. So if everything is aligned, like the planets and stars, and you've got the financial backing, would you do sort of like a full blown tour of the East Coast, or possibly go up into Canada?
Yes, absolutely, all of that. Certainly East Coast. We've already been sort of into the South. We've done a bit of touring in Virginia and Tennessee, and then we've gone up into New England, like New York, upstate New York, Connecticut. We would absolutely love to get into Canada, and our label Soda, who does the online stuff, is based in Canada. So it's likely that our first international tour will take place in Canada, but also Europe is 100% on the list. I've never been to Europe, and I really hope that we can get there. West Coast, absolutely, we would love to.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, Lisa Boo, because she's in Canada, and she's over on the west coast of Canada. Would you get up that? Would you sort of like get there over in West Canada?
I would love to do like West Coast United States all the way up into Canada. That sounds. I've been in the West Coast. I've been in California quite a bit, but never any higher up the West Coast than Oregon. And it was so beautiful there, and I to get up into Vancouver and the West Coast of Canada would be definitely a dream of mine for sure, and certainly of ours as a band.
Yeah, cool. Would you sort of like come to the UK or into Europe?
I would love to. I think Germany is certainly on our list just because of the metal scene out there. Denmark, certainly the UK, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's nowhere that I would say no to at this point. I love traveling. I love playing music on the road also.
Yeah. Lisa Bush said you will love Alberta, and British Columbia is beautiful too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, so our Instagram is probably the most active social media account. The Instagram is at Jaelyn the Band. Jaelyn is spelled Jaelyn. We are also we've got a YouTube channel. I'm sure there's a Facebook, but I don't. That's not one that I'm personally on. And then just the website. It's what is the website? JaelynTheBand.com. Has all of those links. So whatever you're using, I'm sure we've got something there for you.
Cool. So this is probably going to sort of like be my last question. Is there any advice you can give people who want to become a musician?
Yeah, I mean, my advice is to do it, and even if you're not sure if you can, you're not sure if you're good enough, just do it. Like, just get out there and try. We all start somewhere, and the best way to get better and the best way to develop as a person and as a musician is to just put yourself out there and try it. It can be scary and it can be tough and it's a lot of work, but we all keep coming back to it because there's just something so so thrilling and so magical about it. It's something that everyone who wants to or who thinks about it should really take a chance on, because it can really be the experience. It can bring experiences of a lifetime.
Cool. Yeah, sound advice there. Sound advice. So we're going to be starting to wrap things up, but is there any final words you want to say?
We've got, if you're in the United States, in the Virginia area, we're playing a show tomorrow on Saturday in Winchester, Virginia, at the Bright Box Theater. And then we've got a lot of really exciting stuff coming up, including the release of this album. So just keep an eye out. Follow our stuff. Get in touch with us if you want to play with us, if you want to host us, if you want to come to a show, just want to talk to us. We're very approachable.
Cool. Check them out. Check the band out. They are absolutely amazing. I have listened to a couple of the songs, and all the links are in the description of for Jaelyn. So yeah, please check them out. They're absolutely amazing. So Mattie, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a total pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me, Al.
My pleasure. Yeah. So guys, go check them out. Please do. They are amazing. So until next time, we'll catch you all later.